Bernie Sanders put out a call for a progressive international front bringing together left actors from across the world, which the U.S. left is in an expansive moment, is in a moment of building and of rediscovering and discovering for the first time socialism and left ideas are part of a response to the spirit of that call. Here we have in this room people representing the actually existing left forces, representing millions and millions of people across the EU. And up on the stage we have some really fantastic people representing real existing left forces in the United States.
There is a need to unify our resistance, our defense, our rethinking of strategies. And never have thought that I have once in this election period the experience to say we are discussing the question of socialism in the United States. So, I mean, it's really very interesting.
With Alan Minsky of the Progressive Democrats of America. So, Alan, the floor is yours.
The Democrats of America was founded to organize the left wing of the Democratic Party. And, you know, the people in 2004 who were willing to participate in that project, you know, you scratch the surface and you talk to them, and they were among the Americans who were social democrats, even socialists. But, you know, it was founded as an organization to deal pragmatically with the reality of American politics at the time, to organize the left wing of the Democratic Party. And so a liaison of each chapter will have a personal relationship, will go in and meet the staff of the congressperson in their local office, in their constituency. We also lobby on Capitol Hill, and we also endorse candidates. So we were the only national organization in the country to work to draft Bernie Sanders to run for president in 2013. And we were joined by a few other organizations, and of course we were successful in drafting him, not just to run, but to run as a Democrat.
I grew up in like a socialist family, so I have joined the Democratic Socialists of America when I was in college about 15 years ago. So Our Revolution is the newest organization at this table. There's about 250,000 members. My job is in the one bucket is like electing candidates, so supporting our groups who they endorse. The second would be issue work. So this is working on with social movements or around specific, tends to be around specific legislation. The most important one for us right now is the fight for a national health insurance policy, or what we call Medicare for all, but essentially would be creating a policy where the government would provide health insurance.
I'm very thrilled to be here. I think this is incredibly important to have this kind of communication and hopefully going forward collaboration in this moment of rising global fascism. We now have 56,000 dues-paying members, so we went from 5,000 to 56,000. We now have, instead of a few dozen chapters, we have over 200 chapters in every state in the United States. And we have now went from a handful to over 75 members elected to local, state, and national office. Obviously, you may have heard of the most famous ones, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who we will call AOC going forward, and also Rashida Tlaib, who is in Detroit, Michigan. They are both members of DSA, but we also have local elected officials in places like Montana, Pennsylvania, Texas, and in fact, 2 days ago, or this week, in Chicago, which is the third largest city in the United States, we now have 5 members of the city council, 2 who won in the election, I think a month ago, and then 3 who won in a runoff, and there's actually a 4th who won by 24 votes and is going into a recount. And so now they are a socialist voting bloc on the City Council of Chicago. We have a very Gramscian strategy of naming capitalism, challenging, bringing an ideological challenge to this whole system, which is interesting in the United States. And until recently, we were not taken seriously. Bernie Sanders obviously open the window significantly more. But the other thing that we do is we build chapters rooted in communities or high schools or college campuses. So our theory of power is that we need to take state power, but also in the course of that, we need to build power in other arenas. So I always say we have 1 foot in the electoral political system and then 1 foot outside the formal political system. And that means our chapters do things like run corporate pressure campaigns. Our DSA members are teachers, and we have a whole program to help members become teachers and help members in other sectors figure out how to organize their workplaces. And members support striking workers. So the labor movement is another huge part of the work that we do.
But I'm overwhelmed by the international solidarity that you all are showing us for the work that we're doing at Justice Democrats and the comrades that are there from Our Revolution and Democratic Socialists for America. So my name is Alexandra Rojas. I am the current executive director at Justice Democrats. One of the big things, most exciting things that we did during the 2018 election cycle was recruit, support, and then ultimately helped elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York's 14th district to replace every bad Democrat in Congress, even though that is the party that we mostly align with, in order to, again, shift the landscape so that our ideas can become more palpable. So I think 2020 in particular for the United States, and it sounds like for you all, for the European elections at the end of the month, it's going to be extremely important to solidify the mandate, at least that we've been able to do with AOC, Rashida, and Ilhan, and pick up, a ton more seats this time around. So
we're building, the way that we're supporting Bernie Sanders is we're doing an independent campaign. The way the U.S. political system works, the kind of organization we are, the tax status that we are, we cannot spend very much money and directly coordinate with the Sanders campaign. And rather than send all of our people just to go volunteer for Sanders, we are building our own independent campaign that's called an independent expenditure that's not coordinating at all with the Sanders campaign. And we are going to train all of our members to do the political work independently. This is what we do for local, political support. It's how we build the skills and capacity of our members to run campaigns, run candidates, run as candidates, disempower the the blood-sucking consulting class, which is very powerful in the United States. Instead, build the capacity of our own members to do that. That's what we're going to do with the Sanders campaign. And after the election, after we've won, we will have an organized base of socialists in the United States to support Sanders and push Sanders. By
the way, Ilhan Omar's on other fronts is breaking ground that's very powerful. America can be a very, very frightening place, and you cannot underestimate when the right wing gets somebody in their targets with all the damn guns out there. It's pretty damn intimidating. In that case, we'd keep doing what we're doing, which is to continue to advocate for progressive policies, whether it's a moderate Democrat or even Trump. With Trump getting reelected, though, the despair will be really hardcore. I don't even want to think right now about, having to face an election with a god-awful neoliberal centrist Democratic candidate. But, we'll live through it as it unveils, and hopefully Sanders, and if not Sanders, from our perspective and mine too, I think Warren's the second best choice, but Bernie's head and shoulders above her. So,
Trump is really attacking Venezuela because of normalization of relations with Cuba. They need to rile up the right-wing Latin Americans. It's partly a domestic issue too, domestic policy and building support. But he hasn't been able to really get, and Democrats, not in majority, but Democratic like AOC, Ro Khanna, Sanders have all come out against intervention. And I think for us, for example, that Our Revolution has a network called Labor for Our Revolution, which comes out of the four major trade unions and 3 minor ones, who supported Bernie, who have continued to network. And this is really advantageous for us because we can keep the conversations going among the union members and staff who we know support Bernie Sanders, so that it either will get the unions to endorse him, or for many unions at least slow down the process to intervene.
For example, in Oakland, California, our DSA chapter was approached by the Oakland Teachers Association as they were approaching their strike. And they asked us, God, David, do you remember how much? They basically said, we need to feed the children of Oakland indefinitely. Can you raise money for that? They asked DSA to be the ones to raise the money to do that. So tens of thousands of dollars. And we did rise to the occasion. And the Fight for 15, which you referenced, where one of the unions has been able, well, several unions have been involved in campaigns to increase, for example, the minimum wage to $15 an hour in a lot of municipalities, and have also been able to target major employers like Walmart to change their conditions. Those are huge victories. I think one of the solutions is to create our own media. The company that produced AOC's campaign ad, which is so famous, she wrote the script, but they filmed and produced it, is a couple, literally a married couple that are DSA members. It's called Seize the Means, is their production company. And they're launching a new thing called Means TV. And the idea is to provide a counter to all the right-wing, short video clips that they're always using to frame what's happening in current events. Exciting developments, like there's a magazine called Teen Vogue, which has been shockingly having all of this left-wing, like every week there's some new left-wing article that they have. And part of that is because Bernie Sanders and organizations like DSA are normalizing socialism. Recently there was a survey done that said people used to distrust economic elites, and now they distrust politicians more. And I think that's really the danger, and why we need a really visible socialist movement, is that this is what populism is. It's distrusting politicians. And we as socialists have to use new media, and we have to use organizing and building our own capacity to build an organized base that actually understands the difference.